relax jaw, tongue out. It's going to be on a key. So, and we'll start low, and basically we'll go. Take a breath and just come up a little bit.
Could you not take some occasion without giving?
Speak. Is my poor heart for so a kinsman vexed, madam?
Well, you have made a simple choice.
I was never with me for anything.
Is it truth? Or let them bold you.
I think something that I would like to quickly jump to, if we feel like this is where the space is to do it, from the way that we were talking about themes, like it's like how does this impact the youth, and how does, like, you know, if aging the nurse down and aging Friar Lawrence down, like how does, you know, the world that we're in impact like the young generation that we are, but we also do have really powerful adult characters that are needed, right? We need the oppressors to be oppressed.
And I think I'm coming from the standpoint of, since we're a new company, I think we need to figure ourselves out first.
Yeah.
Which is what we're doing now in terms of figuring out our structures, figuring out the way to cast, figuring out this stuff. I think if we secure ourselves first, in the future it'll be easier to add. But that's just.
I think no matter what we're doing, just us cast-wise, right? Is that
Yeah.
Okay.
In the terms of today, do we want to just focus on like this, like the 7 and
then
casting the
figure out
core
double.
7, and then we figure out how we want to do the adults? Because I feel like that is a longer conversation that maybe will happen through devising, or we can have that conversation maybe on like on one of our Zoom devising sessions.
Like the double casting stuff.
Like how do we want to do that?
So then, which core characters do we want to focus on?
Romeo and Juliet.
Mercutio,
Benvolio, Nurse Friar, Tybalt.
Nurse Friar.
The thing is, you know, we talk about timeless text and like, you know, the people's voices inhabiting timeless text. And I guess my role and my interest in casting sort of stems from how drastically different narratives come off when we have these people inhabiting text. So that is me. I am the facilitator of casting. With casting, people tend to play it safe and think that there are other ways of playing through the uncomfortability of going through the process of a show. But Romeo and Juliet, for example, it's very easy for it to be seen, you know, the star-crossed lovers. Oh, so like, you know, when we have somebody of color and a white person do it, it's, you know, it's the obvious. But I think what I'm interested in is casting out of the uncomfortability of what kind of narrative this can tell and how to be more thoughtful and mindful of that.
Yeah, so a normal audition, you would bring in a monologue that you've already done to a group of people, usually a director and a producer and a casting director on the project. It would either be a monologue you bring in, or they provide you with some material that they want you to do from the play. You come in, you do it in front of them, and then you leave. even if they love you, they can't just yell out loud, "I love you," after you've done your audition. And I've had experiences where I've thought I've done a terrible audition, but then I get the part. So there's just no transparency. You come in and you say, "Here I am, I'm gonna do this for you. I hope you like me." And the goal is not to come off as desperate, but the process just leaves so much out of your hands, you know? So in some ways it's freeing, but in other ways it's nerve-wracking.
In this industry, it can be extremely competitive because the casting process is so hierarchical. And it could be like, I want this part, and so I'm gonna do every single thing that I can to get this part. I'm not gonna care about anyone else or the vision of the whole show as a collective. I'm just gonna think about me. But while curating and going into the casting process, like, I was super open and super excited for this democratic making it together and really figuring out how this group of actors lives in the story instead of us kind of being like, oh, I want to play this character, I want to play these characters. It wasn't off of want, it was off of need for the story we want to tell.
Let's start with Juliet and the nurse. And just because everyone's going to read everything, can we have LJ and Sofu up? And then Lydia and Sarah, would you mind? Well, Maria, if I could beat someone. Lydia, would you come? Or one of you? Oh. Rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, I'll feed in.
I will bring up.
Well, no, LJ, you're going to be.
Right. I'm just
Sarah's going to. So let's have you as a nurse. By playing it to me.
By playing it to me.
With so sour a face.
With so sour a face.
I am weary.
Give me leave a while.
Give me leave a while.
Fie, how my bones ache.
Fie, oh, my bones ache.
What a jaunt have I.
What a jaunt have I.
I would thou hast my bones.
And
I thy news.
Nay, come, I pray thee.
Nay, come, I pray thee.
Speak.
Speak.
Good nurse, speak.
Good nurse, speak.
Well, you have made a simple choice.
You know not how to choose a man.
You know not how to choose a man.
Romeo?
Romeo?
No, not he.
No, not he. Though his face be better than any man's.
Yet his leg excels all men.
Yet his leg excels all men's.
And a hand, and a foot, and a body.
And a hand, and a foot, and a body.
What says he about our marriage? What of that?
Where's your mother?
Why she is within.
Why, she is within.
Have you got leave to go trip today?
There stays a husband to make you a wife.
Hide the heart.
Honest
nurse, farewell.
Honest nurse, farewell.
Whatever you're doing, take just a few notes about things that you saw. They can get some additional notes. You can write them down. Whatever you got on you. Get water, and then just to let everyone know.
Yeah, it was a little strange for me. Like, I was all for the democratic casting thing. It was a little strange for me because I'm so conditioned being in the theater world of what an audition is this competitive sort of thing to like win the role over other people. So we would do these readings and I wasn't really sure what we were looking for, and we sort of landed together on the idea of like these dynamics between people rather than individual ability to like play a role. What we were looking for was relationships to use our own experiences and selves the best way for this show.
If we section off like what kind of dynamics we're looking for, like if we have like a passionate dynamic that we notice, and then like a dynamic that was in opposition, or I don't know, or just letting it flow as it comes up type beat.
This is something that I felt rather than noticed, but I particularly was strongly inclined, and I wasn't even thinking this prior to like the feeding in, but after we were done, I felt so strongly gravitated to having a personal relationship to Chris, having that like brotherly love and that like tussle. There was something operating in, you know, just as black people and stuff, like there's subconsciously a way of how we interact with each other that I think is just, you know, there are certain things that you can't just articulate, that it's almost
It's just a known.
right. It's within the psyche that we can't really tap into, but there's something there that like I think especially would love to explore more in some sort of way in that dynamic, and I would love to hear if you guys like
You two, and then I also saw it with Lydia and Sarah.
Yeah, I
like,
felt that.
Like immediately you looked at each other, even though it was like Capulet and
It felt
Julia, it was
like-
like
Was it Friar
It was
Romeo?
Friar
Romeo.
Romeo.
It was
That's what it
Friar
was.
Romeo.
But
Yeah.
I don't know, I felt like sisterly, romantic,
Yeah.
like passionate but understanding and somber.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, I don't know.
I feel that too.
It was the eye
It
thing.
was the-
I just was like watering as I was looking.
Sets of structure. Yeah.
It was when you were Romeo and you were Romeo. I like noticed two things. When you were Romeo and Heschel was the friar. When right before you found Madman, there was a moment when I was like, "Is LJ gonna choke Heschel?" And the violence
Yeah.
that comes with that was so palpable. And then you, at that moment, there was the moment when you said "friend." I just like wrote down really quick, like, what if that's this ignition? Like what, like, you know, so often we see like the full torture throughout the whole speech.
How friends can be there, but they're not actually there. Or like when shit hits the fan, you're not there. Or like for the real stuff, you're not there. And I feel like that's something that like Romeo's really grappling with in his life. I think that's why Mercutio feels like Romeo is changing and Romeo is changing, and like they're like that conflict of like how they used to be versus how they are now, and the difference of that.
But when I was watching you guys, it felt like you guys were in like more disbelief. And there was a moment when you got really quiet when you were doing the speech, and it wasn't like, oh my God, but it was just like, and then it just got, with seeing both of those together, it was like, oh my gosh, like that is such a strong dynamic of like this sweet boy, this sweet, sweet boy, who I also saw a lot of sweetness in your Romeo, just loses all abandon and turns to violence. And I think that was a question we were posing, like violence as a disease. And it was just incredible. I was really thinking, I was like, is Romeo going to like try to kill the friar? And that was a dynamic I was not expecting to see.
Something that this is all making me think about is because of the fact of Friar Lawrence and the nurse being just younger people as well, and that making them equals to Romeo and Juliet in a lot of ways, except not in, it seems like, position within the social hierarchies and the structural ones, like their jobs and stuff. It also means like that the main difference now is like ideological differences and also senses that they are wiser. Because they're not, they can't have this implied social structure that they're these old people and now they're wiser. It's more that they are serving them as workers, and then also they just have a sense that they are wiser than these people, and that creates a really interesting thing of what is human nature, like what leads us to be the people we are, and those ideological clashes rather than just who they are.
I mean, what lives has the friar and the nurse lived that makes them the same age? But like, it's like the modern day equivalent of people who go to college versus people who have to work.
There was a scene, it was Lydia and Sofu at the end of the show dancing together.
God.
That was
That
just
was the Romeo Juliet.
Yeah, it was
breathtaking.
really.
that is something we can't deny.
Yeah,
was like-
that was just breathtaking
Yeah.
to me.
I think that,
It
like, I
was really
think that
stunning.
casting wise, we can find palpable love of an RNJ between any of us, but I think it's the relationships of the Romeo to the friar, the Romeo to
Yeah.
the Juliet to the. Like, I think that's the palpable thing, because even Romeo and Juliet have different means
Totally.
about going
We
about
said
their love.
this when
Yeah.
we were
Oh, I'm sure you did.
When we were
because we were making the scenes, Heschel was like, we don't have a scene with Romeo and Juliet. And I was like, I don't think we need the
Yeah.
because you have to have two
Yeah.
people who collide into each other
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
different worlds. And it's like,
Like even their first meeting, well, even in the balcony scene, like
Yeah.
they're dissonant. They're
arguing.
their two worlds are different.
Yeah.
Like he goes back and there's dick jokes, and then she's like
And
struggling to
there's
figure
so
out
much
marriage
to
and like.
explore there too.
Yeah.
And it's like why these two people,
Yeah.
and then digging into that text.
It's
Like
like
all these characters seem to show up for Romeo and Juliet in certain ways. And I think the big question is like, how do Romeo and Juliet show up for these other people? How do they show up for their own?
I think the most difficult but also most exciting part of it is figuring out how to meet people like where you are all at together to create something that's inspiring all of you, and I feel like that should be the goal when you're making theater with people rather than like, you know, a winners and losers situation. Sofu, who was the like main facilitator of that process, also was like taking notes as an outside eye as we were talking about it. So we had these readings and then we talked about it and like said our things together. And then Sofu gave us a bunch of these different lists, like a cast list, like potential cast lists.
The process of casting was really fun. I think I've never been like less nervous for a casting process, which was also marvelous. I played like several characters. I played Mercutio, I played the nurse.
I got really excited one of the runs. We did a Friar Lawrence run where I was doing it, where I got this idea of like a young, very troubled Friar Lawrence.
For me, I really enjoyed exploring all of the characters, but I did feel like an innate closeness to the nurse.
Getting to explore the Lady Capulet character was interesting. I was like, oh, this is a woman who, whether you love her or hate her, she is doing what she thinks is best for her daughter.
Coming into the specific casting process that we did at the beginning of January, I, of course, still had Juliet, you know, near and dear to my heart, as I always will. As I started to do these feeding in exercises that we were doing, I didn't feel myself with this group of actors going towards her. I felt myself going more towards this like frenetic energy and this like grit.
You immediately get this impulse, and like, you know, it's like impulse after impulse after impulse, which just makes it more really fun because so many things were coming up that were like unexpected.
I love the friar, but I didn't realize how interesting this character was until we were doing some gesture work. In the play, textually, the friar is who everyone sort of comes to for advice, and he seems to have all the answers. And in exploring some gesture work, I realized, oh, this is a man similar to myself who is looking to answers from God. This is a man of faith, and as a young man of faith myself, like getting the chance to explore that in a character was very interesting to me.
We got to do the Friar Lawrence and Romeo scene where the Banashed monologue is. And it was really wonderful to talk about that relationship and how it could be present in Mercutio and Tybalt. And then I just had this, I was like sitting back and like someone else was talking and I was like Tybalt just kind of like grazed my head in a way.
Sofu drafted up these 3 incredible casts, and we went through our voting process.
We wanted to stick with the core 7. You know, everybody within the team plays one of the significant roles. And then from there on, we'd sort of clarify who would get double cast. And pretty much every other role is double cast except for Romeo and Juliet.
Putting equal weight on every character in this show. During the audition process, there weren't any readings with Romeo and Juliet. There was never a Romeo and Juliet scene that we read. We all got to speak our truth about what we wanted to explore, because this is what Lucien is. We're not product oriented. We are process oriented. When we saw everyone's dynamics play out in these other characters, it became easy to see how people's bodies work together, to see how people's voices work together. And that's how we cast the show. I guess that's it.